Hello and welcome to the stream. We are back in our usual save, and this time we're gonna focus not on the waterfront, but on this open space in this area of the city. So I think our main goal is going to be filling out this with some new residential blocks. We have full demand of everything, so we can really build whatever we want. And then I think we're also going to potentially take a look at easing this highway connection, as we are starting to get traffic backing up all the way out onto our highway. So I think we need to start taking a more serious look at a solution for this. And so, as usual, if you guys have any ideas on what you want to see built in these areas, or have any ideas of your own, or even if you just want to chat, leave some comments in the chat and I will be sure to take those into consideration. And so I think first let's maybe take a look at this highway and figure out what we could do with it to appease some of this traffic troubles that we're having. And I think the first thing that's more important is this highway is actually an outside connection that goes all the way to the other side of the map. So we really need to focus on prioritizing movement along this. There's a few things we could do. We could firstly redirect it so that we can have a proper interchange and keep this separated from the rest of our city. And then this can still just be the main entryway into all of this. I believe we do have another interchange out here. It's not our greatest looking interchange, but it does get the job done. So this serves as a secondary entrance and exit to the city. So I think if we figure out how to get this to connect nicely somewhere in this area, we could have a third entry into our city somewhere over here, and that could help spread out the amount of people coming in and out of everything. So I think we will keep this portion of the road. We'll keep it as a highway for now too. But I think we're going to cut it off somewhere in this area. Bring it probably over these train tracks. Or we could have it cross over to the other side and then come under this bridge and loop around. We have a few options of what we could do. But first, more importantly, I think we need to buy a few tiles in order to make this work. So I think we'll just buy these two tiles, round out this little section that is captured by our rail connection. We can purchase those, that'll be a good start. And then, well, maybe let's not sever this connection immediately. Let's perhaps work from this way back towards the highway. And so once again, thinking about how we want to do this, I think let's set up our highway and we'll keep it a 2-lane highway, or actually we'll have it be 4 lanes at first, and then we'll switch to a 2-lane once we get farther out. But we can bring this over. I think something like that gives us a good starting point. And then we have to think about our connections. So a lot of this highway is going to have to upgrade to 4 lanes. So let's just do that right away. And it looks like we can't upgrade this segment because of this right here. We will purchase that. We'd probably need to get that tile anyway soon. So we can upgrade that segment. And we might as well turn all of this into 4 lanes. We want to make sure we keep the bridge. And then maybe we turn this segment into... Actually, maybe this needs to be elevated as well. So we'll keep all of this elevated. That should work out pretty well. We'll fix the landscaping once our connections are made. But now we can start to think about how we connect to this. And we can start with our easy connections. So starting all the way to the right, we can just curve this road back and merge into here. Our next easy connection would take place coming off the bridge right about here, where it just becomes as simple as doing that. And then the slightly more complex part of this is taking our middle section, making sure it's coming straight through here, just like so, and then raising it up high enough to go over. I think we're going to have to retry that. Let's maybe do this a bit more gradually. It seems like we might already be elevating just the way that the road is going. But we'll continue to go up. Unfortunately, this isn't high enough to get us over the road. We are going to have to pull this back again. And then at this point is where we can... I think maybe we curve it to the right. So we bring it this way. And we can start bringing it down at this point. We will come back through and fix all of this with move it after the fact. Bring it down just one more. And then at this point we can branch off our individual lanes and connect these up. We can have that connection, and then we can peel off of this road and make this connection. So let's come in and fix some things. I think this node absolutely needs to get moved up, so we'll do that. We can try to fix some of these more bumpy areas. I think this is starting to come together. Something here isn't a huge fan of what we're doing, so let's try to get maybe a bit of separation between the road. And we can do that. So this is starting to look a little bit better. Still not perfect. Hey, welcome to the stream. We are currently fixing up our highway connection so we don't have such a big traffic jam at our main entry into the city. And we're just putting the finishing touches around here, giving some things a slight nudge to get them exactly where we want them to be. I think we can keep raising this road. We want to try to fix whatever slope is going on here. I think that smooths out a bit more. I'm pretty happy with how this road is slowly descending. I think the only thing that needs fixed in this area is this connection. So we can straighten up that road. Maybe we pull this back a bit further. I think that works really well. This connection, I think we just need to pull our actual connection point a bit farther down. Try to smooth out this curve. I think realistically, you'd want to be able to give the cars a good run up as they accelerate to highway speeds. I think that comes out nicely. Then we just have these two on and off ramps. So this we could slide a little bit closer. We can get something more like this. And then we have this connection to worry about, which we'll try to pull that back as close to the bridge as we can. And then we just need to smooth out this curve a little bit. And then I think we need to bring this node up so we get a bit more of a smooth transition. So if we zoom in really close here, we can get a bit of an idea of what our road height looks like. We do have to come back through and delete all these bushes that have popped up on our roads. I think this segment needs raised. Just like so. And I think I'm pretty happy with how this came out. So let's clean this all up by removing the trees. And then we can get to connecting this to the other portion of the highway that we cut off. So just a few bushes we have to remove. Make sure that nothing is clipping into anything. Over here is a few more. We're also going to come through and fix up the terrain. Since we did use Move It, some of the terrain has some harsh and jagged edges. So we'll get that nice and fixed up. But this should be the last of the bushes we need to remove. I think this turned out well. So let's grab our terrain brush. We'll lower this down and soften out our terrain. I'll actually raise this up a little bit around where our bridge starts. I think if possible, let's add some key walls so that this feels a bit more natural. I think if we use Anarchy, we can get that to work. And we maybe just have to smooth the terrain. Yeah, it looks like that'll work. We can get that to look a bit more realistic. Maybe not perfect, but we could always hide that with bushes or something else. That area is softened up. We have this area we could fix. Something here really doesn't like this. So we'll have to be gentle with how we fill it in. But that's a bit more smooth. We have this area we need to work on. I think all that's left is along here where we have a bit of a cliff, but we're gonna have to sort of carefully navigate this so we can bridge over our train tracks and reconnect to this highway. And so what we will need to do is raise up this end of our highway to the height that we want it to be at. Now we could add a retaining wall to the one side, which could give us an interesting look to this. So we'll try it out. We'll see what we can come up with. But first, we need to adjust our terrain around all of this road. We'll smooth this out. I think what we need to do is bring this elevation out a bit further. Get that all smoothed up. And then I'm just not a big fan of what this is doing, so we'll fix this real quick and then we can move on to some other stuff. You can see the huge amount of traffic trying to get into our city right now. We actually need to come back through it and maybe change some of these so that we get the correct lane math with all of this. So we want that to be 3 lanes. We want this segment to be 3 lanes as well. And then we can upgrade this to be 4 lanes all the way to this next exit. I don't see too much of an issue doing that. And then I'm okay with how this terminates. So now we can leave that and continue moving this direction. So I think we are going to have to purchase this tile so that we can build along this hillside. And then we can just very carefully follow some of the terrain. And we will want to try to keep this flat, or flatter. So we're going to have to pull this into the hillside a little bit. And just keep an eye on our slope here as we do this. I think here's actually where we're going to just have this come straight across. And we can come back through and fix some of this. Just add an intersection. And I believe this lets us upgrade the inner portions of all of this. This will be elevated, and that is way too low. We're actually going to have to demolish all of this and rebuild it. Forgot we still had Anarchy turned on, which is why it let us do this. But we just need to come back here. And then we just have to start climbing a little bit earlier. So this can get raised up maybe a little bit more. So yeah, we can go right about there. Continue this straight across. And that still says it's not tall enough. We go one more higher. Now it's a pillar problem. So we can get this to work if we had it curve a bit more to the right. Unfortunately, don't quite have the space to do that. So our options are to either demolish the train tracks and rebuild those, or rethink our approach just a little bit to cross this, which I think it's better off for us to maybe just retry this approach a bit more. So we'll bring this in right about here. And then this is really going to mess up the terrain, but we'll come back and fix it. We can bring this around. And if we do this just right, I think we can get a bit of a better angle coming into this. It seems like we're still just barely not able to cross over, but I do think we are much closer with this approach. We just need to try again. Let's see what this gives us. This gives us a much better... Yeah, that's a much better bridge over the highway, or over the train tracks. Now what we can do is demolish this, and then lower this highway back down to connect up right about here. And so we have this connection. There's a few things I think I want to change real quick. So we sort of come down just to go back up. I think we're going to fix that. And we will just have this highway come straight across. For some reason it's not quite snapping how we want it to. And then we'll actually raise this up. And then from this point we can connect right into here. I think that gives us a bit of a smoother connection. Yeah, we can worry about how that looks later. Now we can force this to be ground level, and then we can smooth out the terrain around it. We can actually bring up our brush size. We can do the same for our smoothing brush as well. That way this feels a bit more natural. We just now need to think about what all of this looks like. And so all along the edge here we can just smooth this out. And we might have to come back through here and upgrade this so we get the right wall types. So I will keep the retaining wall here. I do like that look. We have our elevated segment. So now we can come back through, lower all of this so we can reveal that, and then come back and soften our terrain to make it feel a bit more natural. Doesn't quite seem like it wants to do that. I think we're going to have to cut a bit deeper into the land. Because even though we have this retaining wall, I think the game still keeps note of the original terrain height, which is how it can determine the height of the terrain to be on either side of the road. So we can do that, and then on this side, we're gonna have to be a little bit precise with it. I think either end of this retaining wall should be a bit closer to flat, so we don't run into any weird issues at the start and end of this. I feel like it's gradually flowing. So if we start to smooth this out, that starts to feel better. So it's not perfect, but I think it is a little bit better than what we had before. I'm not a huge fan of what's going on right here. So let's see if we can use a little bit of Move It to just fix that. I think it looks like there's two nodes really close to each other, which is why it was looking a little odd. But now we have this highway that we can sort of do whatever we want with. We are keeping it as sort of a county highway, smaller, more local highway maybe. I'm not too sure what I want to do with this, so I think what we'll do is we'll make a bit more of an informal connection here. So this is just more or less going to weave around our larger highway. And we want to make sure everything's turned off. And ideally, I think this comes under this. So we are going to have to lower the terrain a little bit through here just to make sure this fits. And then what I want to do is bring this up just like so, and then try to get this to curve right under and back around. We might have to pull that back further. Get a bit of a better run through here. I actually didn't want to do that, so let's come back to here. We wanted that connection, then we wanted this to come up, and that should work for us. We'll just continue this, and maybe we can have it just follow this set of train tracks for a little bit. Yeah, we'll figure out what to do with that at a later point, but for now, we can leave that as it is. Maybe this ventures off out this way and we have a connection somewhere over here. Or maybe we just keep it as a local highway, sort of connecting one end of town to the other. But now what I really wanted to do, let's see if we can actually do this, because I do want this to connect to our highway. We'll continue to upgrade this to 4 lanes. But I think what we want to do now is have this come down, and this will just be a really sort of crude connection to this highway. So it's not going to be like a proper interchange, but we will have on and off ramps. Not a huge fan of how this is turning out, so let's maybe restart this. And so this sort of just comes to a stop sign or maybe a traffic light right here. And then you have this connect to our highway. We can do something like that. And then this off ramp here, we can very easily just do something like that. And then I want to try to do something similar for this side. So we have an off ramp. I'm not sure how we want to do this. Maybe what we can do is just keep this connection as it is, and then we can build out more roads this way and then get this connection a bit later on. let's see if that's affected traffic here in any way. Now, I'm not sure when the big rushes of traffic come in, but I think since we're no longer having this sort of through traffic coming from this end of town, we're not overloading this Cedar Highway. And so I think that leaves us off at a good point to begin expanding this area of town. So I think this is going to be a bit more denser row homes like we're seeing here. And then I think this is some UK housing. I think we can start to slowly diminish in density as we work our way towards our new highway connection. That way we don't have so much structure out here, and this can sort of flow a little bit easier. And so maybe this stays as these blocks that we've sort of defined already, and then as it sort of meets Cedar Highway here, it starts to break down into a bit more of a lower density area where the roads are a bit more free-form and organic. And I think that gives a good opportunity for Elm Street to also come back through and reconnect to our Sunset Highway. And so let's begin thinking about this. I think we want this block to be more medium density once again. We do have some of the United States Southwest medium density housing, which is actually like a perfect size as a transition between row homes and more proper medium density. So I think we'll use more of these in this area, especially since this is closer to the water. There will definitely be a little bit more demand along here. I think we'll keep some of what we have. I think a lot of this is just mixed housing. Okay, we'll keep a lot of this, and we'll come in, find our mixed zoning. And let's just try out what the regular base North American mixed zoning looks like. So we'll just sort of let that fill in. We're gonna have to do something here with the awkward corner. I think that's because, well, no, we do have zoning enabled on Elm Street. For some reason, these grids just aren't aligning. We could maybe try to fix this. But yeah, I'm not too sure what's going on here. Maybe we need to rebuild this road. Interesting. So we're still not able to get that to perfectly align. I wonder if it's... So it seems like we are maybe not aligned with this road. But I think that's okay if see if we can try to connect here, drag this down. Like so, that's a little bit better. At least everything's aligned again. And then we just continue, we bring this road down. And that's where our problems pop back up again. We're good here. And then we're not. And it looks like even this grid is slightly off. So I wonder if we just continue to build this out, if it would fix itself. There we go. That actually doesn't look too bad. And we now have the usual North American mixed housing. I'm not a huge fan of how this is looking. I think there's some detail that could be done to make this better. I don't think this Netherlands housing along the backside of here is really helping us transition. Yeah, I don't think this is doing us any favors in terms of how this is looking. So I think let's try removing this. And we'll replace it with the United States Southwest medium density housing. And let's see what kind of buildings we get with that. I'm going to try to make sure we're getting some good lot sizes here. We'll see what that grows into be. But if we can get it to be these more smaller type of buildings, I think that'll be a much more natural transition than what we had here previously. And then I do maybe want to also get rid of this, unless we think maybe we could do some kind of parking or park back in here, which that might actually not be too bad. Let's see if we can throw something back here, maybe an alleyway. And then if we figure out how we can get parking, actually all of this can be turned into an alleyway with parking. So let's see if we can get that in. So that's not terrible. It's not great, but I suppose there's worse things we could do with this space. And then maybe this turns into an alleyway with parking on one side. Looks like that accidentally got rid of a building. But you know what? Maybe this isn't parking. Maybe this is just a road connection through here. For some reason, it's not a huge fan of something over here. So we will use Anarchy to get this to work for us. Which means we will have to dezone. Or maybe, I guess, demolish whatever building is here. I think this could work. This could turn into something. I think all we need to do is add a surface. Everything here is nice and square, so this should be an easy add. We actually need this to be a pavement surface, maybe? I guess that looks a little bit... It doesn't look better, really, so... Let's maybe... We might have to change this up a little bit. Not sure quite what happened here. We have a whole bunch of surfaces sort of overlapping. I think we didn't mean to get rid of that one. We wanted to get rid of these. Alright, so now I think we're all cleaned up with surfaces. We could be a bit more deliberate about where we want these. So I think along here makes sense. So having this be a nice square connection. And then maybe this does just stay as green space, and it could potentially be parks for this low rent housing. We do have this building here which does have a path, and potentially we could build off of this. Maybe not. It doesn't seem like our path really matches that, but what we could do is just drag out the surface so that visually it connects to this area, and then maybe we just put a bunch of trees and other stuff back here to help it fit in. And then another thing we'll do just to help with through traffic in this area is we will lower the speed to 10 miles an hour on this road. That should hopefully help limit people cutting through this. There's a small chance it won't. In that case, we can still go even slower, but I think we're okay leaving it where it's at. And maybe we can take a look at some signature buildings. Although we don't have much unlocked at the moment, so maybe we walk back on this one a little bit. Because I don't think, we just don't really have what enough signature buildings to really fill this area. I think maybe what we could do to help with this transition is we could throw something like the bookshop right here. Actually, let's remove that and try doing this again, but with anarchy turned off, so that it actually demolishes buildings. So this might help with our density, sort of slowly ramping this up. Actually, I feel like this wants to be a corner building, so let's relocate this to the corner right here. That's much better. And some slight adjustments to the surface. I think that'll work out really well. As for some other signature buildings, we do have this inn. Let's maybe see what that looks like. I don't think it looks that bad, but I do think maybe this might be a better building for the coast. Or not the coast, the riverside. Same with some of these other like hotel type of buildings. So yeah, we'll leave this for now and move back on to filling in this new area. But first, we have power issues for some reason. Looks like we have 100% usage. I think we're just at our limit. I believe all of our services are back up to 100%. So as a quick fix, we can upgrade these wind turbines. For a more long-term fix, I think we're going to have to start thinking about a better location for a new or larger power plant. There's maybe some potential sites out here we could go to, but we definitely don't have that much more room to spare. Anyway, back to here. We did have that one signature building we wanted to potentially have along here. Alright, so the Northeastern Inn. We could potentially get this placed. And I think this is a good building to have facing the water. It's nothing too spectacular, but it does give us a bit more of a nicer front. We can use Move It to get this aligned right at the corner so that that naturally fits in. And we could also do something with this area, so I think we'll leave that open. I'm not a huge fan of this corner building, but we'll see if it upgrades into something a little more interesting. Now, as for our buildings along here, we have a couple of different options we could go with, but I think we'll go with the southwest mixed use. I believe we're using those over here, and this is just residential. So I'm not entirely sure what the mixed use, actually this is a mixed use one. Yeah, it looks like along here this is all mixed. So I do like the look of these. We'll see what grows into this area. And then we now have to start thinking about these blocks. And I think this is where we wanted to really start scaling down our density. But I think we need to prioritize, yeah, we have zoning on Elm Street, so we'll keep that prioritized. And I think that is where we'll keep a lot of our Southwest mixed zoning. I feel like these seem like buildings that you would see close to the water. I think we got this right. I'm not sure. I guess we'll see when we zone this in what kind of buildings we get. We might have to retry this a few times until we get buildings facing Elm Street. Or what we could do, just to make this easier, is delete that row of zoning. Interesting, for some reason we're just not able to get that to work. There we go. So it looks like it's going to be two separate buildings. We just had to play around a little bit with the zoning grid. Yeah, I think I like how these are coming in. These feel a bit better in scale for what we want. And we'll let this area be the more built up, slightly higher density area. And then this can start to really just mellow out into single family homes. And then even more as we spread out to this area of the city. So I think we can think about more for parking. So we do have this two-way alley parking. I'm not the biggest fan about how much space it takes up, but it is useful. We want to try to get this to snap to 90 degrees there. And then we just have an alleyway come across here, and that's how this connects to this. And then what we need to do is no zoning on this, no zoning on these roads. And then on this side, we will do more of this mixed zoning, and then on the other side we can start to transition into row homes. So I think closer to the water we'll keep with the Southwest pack buildings, see what we get from those. And then while we wait, let's use Road Builder just to make sure no one's going to use these alleyways here to cut through traffic. So we'll lower all of that to 10 miles an hour. And as these start to come in, I do kind of like what's going on. Not the biggest fan of these two buildings being the same, but I think that's fine. Or actually, let's just delete it and see what we get back in its place. Yeah, I think these are coming out good. So I think we'll follow that for these other two blocks. We'll have sort of this dividing road of an alleyway, and then we can have these one-ways coming through, providing a little bit of parking behind all of these buildings, and also I think this one was just ever so slightly off, but also allowing a little extra parking and a way through for people. I think we can leave this one way going the opposite direction. I don't think the direction of this really matters too much right now. But now we can just fill all this in. Actually, before that we needed to... Yeah, this is the exact problem we didn't want to happen. We need to fix our zoning along all of these alleyways. So let's make sure these are upgraded to not have zoning. And now we should be able to paint these in and get what we want. We want to make sure also along this street everything is turned off. Unfortunately, it seems like we only get 3 tile deep zoning with these row homes. So maybe we do have to look into... What are these? These are just the northeast style row homes. So maybe we do that just so we can get full lots. So we'll grab the northeast style ones, get those in here. And we're gonna have to carefully delete all these once again. And we'll have some nice strong blocks of row homes coming in. So welcome to the stream. If you are recently tuning in, we have redone this highway connection. Previously this highway connected to this highway, Cedar Highway, causing a huge traffic jam at this main roundabout. But now we've rerouted that to intersect with our other main highway, and we don't have to worry about any through traffic going through our own city. So as all of these come in, I think this is looking pretty good. Yeah, I like how these are coming in. This still gives us a good feel for the area. We get a little bit of an idea of what this will look like fully upgraded with all of these. I believe all of these are level 5. So we get a good mix and variety here. And then I think we want to transition into this UK terraced housing, which I think we'll do maybe for the next block. So we need to go back to finding out what this grid was. So it was 9 units long, although maybe we don't have to do that as often, because I don't think we're gonna do these alleyways past this point here, because we are going to try to get a bit less density going on So there won't be a need for this sort of back alley parking. I'm wondering if we go just down to 8 units. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Go one more for the road. And then this seems like we should get some nice even blocks from that. I think we will continue with the pattern of not zoning directly on these streets here. We'll keep our zoning on Elm Street. And I think we'll actually keep this alleyway running behind them as well. We'll make sure nothing can zone onto it. But at a certain point, I think we can transition down to just regular commercial zoning. I think we'll do one more of a mixed zoning type. There we go. We got 2 4x4 buildings. And then here's where we really want to think about some of our lower density housing. So we have the UK semi-detached housing. Let's maybe fill this block up and see what that looks like. Seems like some of these are gonna not fill up the whole lot, but I think that's okay. I think we could also do another experiment. We could see, this is Dutch style row housing. This is back to that terraced housing that we had. I think let's also do a block of that. We can sort of treat this as a bit of an experiment to see what this looks like. We'll just give this a moment for these to all fill in. So this is what our semi-detached housing looks like. I think I do like the way this looks. Maybe a bit better than the terraced housing. Although these could be interchangeable. I don't think I see too much of an issue of using either. But I am maybe a bit more biased towards the semi-detached housing. Just because we get a bit more away from that row home solid front facade that we have here. And then we have the single family homes, which I don't think we're quite ready to just start having these everywhere. I think we'll dezone all of these, rezone them as the semi-detached housing for this block. We'll have to demolish all of this. And then we can see how this grows in. For some reason we're not. Maybe it's because of the demand, but some of this doesn't seem to be growing in how we want it to. There we go. Yeah, this should end up looking similar to this, where we get a bit more detached housing. It starts to spread out in density a little bit. And then at a certain point we can spread full on out into single family homes. So while we wait for those to fill in, let's get back to Elm Street, and maybe we can start to think about where we go next with this road. I'm almost wondering if Elm Street curves back and that becomes our connection to this highway. If we end up with sort of a four-way intersection. Yeah, you know what? I think I kind of like that idea. So we do have a hill coming up here. We want to make sure this comes out at a decent slope and not something that is too steep. So we'll bring that straight through like so. And then at a certain point we want this to curve. And then head straight for our highway. We're not going to connect that up just yet, but I think that gives us a good guide on where this is going. We can also give it the usual upgrades that we've done everywhere else. So we want trees in the middle with grass. And upgrade the grass in there. And then I'm almost wondering if this street here, Willow Street, turns into a road that sort of acts as a divider. It does get a little close to this street, so maybe not. But what this could do is help us break up our grid a little bit. So we can have this come through. For some reason it's not wanting to connect perfectly. Yeah, so it seems like it's just ever so slightly off. We'll try to still make that connection. Yeah, we can do that. And then this intersection will just be a little bit wonky, but that's okay. From a distance, I don't think anyone will notice. So that helps us break up this a little bit more. Maybe this continues to be offices or industrial even. Since we have Cedar Highway here. We have this continue to come through. Maybe something like this. I think let's maybe try filling this with offices, see what this ends up looking like. We'll use the Southwest offices, as those usually come with some of their own parking. Or we could plop in our own parking if we don't like the way these buildings look. It looks like we got a whole bunch of traffic issues again. There is an accident. So that might be part of our issue, but it is backing up quite a bit. I'm almost wondering if there's any way around this. I think having this connection over here soon will help. We just have yet to make that connection. But yeah, we need to clear up this wreck, and hopefully things will get moving again. Looks like things are slowly starting to move. So it's going to take a second to get back up. Okay, we'll continue building out our road network. Yeah, we do have to keep in mind we have a little bit of a significant hill in this area. So maybe we use that to help define our road. So we could have this road come down here, and that can actually connect into this road. This way there's a bit more logic and structure to what we're building. So this road follows the hill. I think we can have a natural break in our density then here, and then up here can be something a little bit different. But that means we should be able to just pull these straight through until they connect. And then as to how we treat this, I'm still not entirely sure. But what I do see is a good opportunity to continue this road straight. Have it connect here. And then maybe this is what defines our connection to the highway. We have that road slowly sloping up. This comes along this way. And then just before it gets too close to the highway, it meets the river. So what this does is allows us to connect that road, and then this can inform us of this highway connection. So we just pull this out a little bit. And then we can go from each corner and just connect it in. Something just as simple as that should do pretty well for connecting us. Now we do have to clean up these turning lanes. So we can remove that, remove this one, and then just do a little bit of cleanup. I think we are going to have to use a little bit of move it. Maybe we move this down, it seems like. Maybe these get shifted a little bit. And that feels a little bit better with our connections. We had to just quickly remove the trees that showed up from adjusting these things. I think we'll leave it at that. We can come back and clean this up a bit more once we start developing in this area, but I think for now we have all the necessary connections made. I actually think the last one we need to make is from here to here. We can actually upgrade this road to be a highway road. And so now the point from entering the highway to go this direction and to enter the highway and go in the other direction isn't too out of the way. It's just a little bit down the road and around. But we might now start to see some traffic coming in through here. So as I'm thinking about where we want some locations of things, I think some businesses we definitely want lined up along here. This will act as a commercial area for all these people to come and walk down. Let's maybe try to fill in that. And then we just need to decide on a good grid system to keep following. We could continue to follow this. We do have something a little bit different here, but maybe this helps act as a buffer. We can have some more industry lined up along the highway. So maybe we'll actually just continue to do that for the time being. And yeah, our wind direction goes that way. I don't think we're going to have anything immediately in this area for quite some time, so I'm okay with the wind blowing our industry in that direction. Looks like we're starting to run back into some power issues because we're already pushing the limit in all of our expansion. We could throw some more wind turbines down, although it seems like those aren't doing too much for us at the moment. We could just plop another coal plant somewhere. And that could be a very short-term fix. We can actually get that over here, although I'm not a huge fan of having that so close to what will be a residential area. I wonder if we just delete all this. Or actually, we should probably pause while we do this. I think I would like to get a more robust wind power system going, especially once we start to get to the foot of these mountains. I think the wind really starts to pick up out there. But for now, we'll do the easy, simple solution of just adding another power plant. And it says we're overlapping something. Not sure what. Maybe it's the power lines. Yeah, it seems like it was the power lines. So we'll get these back connected. So now we have 2 coal power plants going. Not exactly what we wanted, but it'll do for now. We have some more industry popping up along here. I think these are warehouse buildings. I do like maybe keeping this area as warehouses, and then the more factory buildings tucked a bit further away from all of our residents. But let's continue building out still. We still haven't decided how we wanted to treat this. Maybe this becomes a park. We can sort of just shift the road. think we could maybe do that. Or at least give it a try and see what happens. I think we definitely want this road to continue. Now, how it connects to this road, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it just terminates at our next intersection, and this just connects in like so. This gets cut off, and we do that. Or maybe we get rid of this road and this can become a school or something larger. A school might actually work out really well here, because our next closest schools I think are over on this side. Looks like we have some buildings that are complaining. We'll just demolish those. We have a few more here. Not sure why those end up getting broken. It looks like we also have some traffic issues popping up through our city. But we can't afford to get caught up in all that. We should finish building this out and then adding services to this area. So we'll get all this in. And a lot of these schools are pretty small. So maybe we can add a few more things in here, unless we did want to put a high school in here. We could potentially do that with this USA Southwest High School. This takes up a good amount of space, but I don't think it quite fits the density that we're looking for in this area. I like the look of this small high school, but it is just a bit too small, in my opinion. And all these other high schools are just really small. This one's not too bad. I think this is just the base high school. I think the unfortunate thing about it is its upgrades are a bit large. Yeah, this high school sports field, well, it could fit across the street here. I'm not sure how we can weave this into the fabric of our city, but we could give it a go. I'm not even sure if we needed high school. Yeah, we did, but maybe we can throw an elementary school on this lot, and that'll help sort of finish out the scope of what we wanted. Maybe see what these upgrades look like on it. I almost like how this looks. I think I maybe like this better. That way we have some form of separation. This could maybe just be parking, because we do need to account for parking for this, all of this. Let's see if maybe we can relocate the... Interesting, we can't relocate the high school without getting rid of this building. Let's get rid of that. We'll relocate this. I think this corner makes a bit more sense. And this says we can't do that. I think with Anarchy we could, and it still functions normally. So now this allows us to have two more defined areas. So maybe this is a smaller parking lot for the elementary school. This can be a slightly larger parking lot for the high school and the sports field. And then this can become some sort of transition strip, or maybe even just a privacy screen between high school and elementary school. So let's get the parking lots put in. I think we want these to be actual streets. We'll upgrade this to be a regular road. Get rid of this. Actually, we do want to keep this. Because what we want to do is it'll let us snap to it. We want this to go perfectly down this way, although that looks like it's creating plenty of problems that we don't want to deal with. This is interesting on how we could deal with this. We could do a one-way. If we can get this to snap to the middle of a block, that would be great. But I don't think we're gonna get that. So let's continue to build out our guide roads. So here and here. I don't think that's necessarily what we wanted. We're gonna have to deal with that either way. And then we just get a one-way road. I don't think this is gonna look good at all. Yeah, this isn't quite working out the way we wanted. Maybe the answer is a slightly different approach. And we do a one-way. I guess a two-lane road is the same width no matter what. We do that. Can we get something? No, this isn't gonna, that's not gonna work either. And so I guess we can take a look and see if any of these just default parking lots work. Maybe if we add our roads back in and then see if our parking fits. It almost does. It's still not really what we wanted in the end. Like, that just doesn't quite look like what we wanted to put in here. Maybe this is a road that cuts through here. And then I think we just have to be okay with having one road of parking for the high school. We could always add more somewhere else, but I think we're just going to have to be okay with that. And then same with the elementary school here. I think we're just going to have to be okay with a parking lot road here. And so it's not the end of the world doing that. What that does allow is an opportunity for a playground. Or maybe some, well, actually, we could add in a few sort of playground park assets through here. We could do this. And then what we can do is remove everything within here besides just the playground equipment. And then we can put our own fences around. I think we'll do that. We'll get rid of these light posts. I think we'll keep those bike racks in. We'll keep those rocks. I think we'll even delete the surfaces here. So maybe we don't keep that bike rack. I want to delete this surface. And I think we can keep the fence around it and everything else inside of here, because this is a nice playground asset. I think maybe the only thing that we change is we throw in a part or a path along the back side here. We can do that. And maybe we just plop in a few trees to help it feel a bit more natural. So this will feel like a natural barrier as opposed to a hard fence barrier. And then this can have just some larger trees around in the area. And then we just have to throw in a grass surface so it looks like it's well taken care of. And now that looks like it's part of this school complex. We won't do a similar thing here, but I think we will just add a surface. I'm not sure what we'll put in here at the moment. Now, something that I thought of and we could do in some of our empty spaces over here is we could think about water runoff. And usually when you have large sites like this, like a high school or a sports field, all of the water that would normally collect on that site needs to go somewhere. And so we could turn this into a stormwater retention basin, and that's where sort of all that water will get routed to, so it technically stays on the site and also helps with some flood management. It also gives us a nice excuse to not do anything with the terrain here. So I think what we'll do is we'll lower our brush strength a lot, and then we'll just ever so slightly lower this, and we'll fill this with a bunch of different bushes and other trees. I do like how the surface seems to be breaking, although that does seem to be a little bit steep. So maybe we smooth this out and we do something with our own surfaces. So we'll bring this down and we'll just smooth this out a little bit. And then what we'll do with the surfaces, I'm not sure how we would do this. Because we sort of need this to break into sort of a ring. But we'll just keep doing this and following this around. I think we'll try to give it a bit of a jagged edge following the contour lines so it feels natural once we put some plants in here. We'll stop it here for now. I think maybe we need to come back through and soften this up just a little bit. For some reason it's getting a little bit rough in some spots. There we go. So let's fill this with a whole bunch of wildflower bushes. Hopefully our brush gets small enough. Looks like we might have to do some cleanup of our own. Something like this would be just filled with bushes and tall grasses, although we don't really have tall grass. And then we just have to clean this up of all of our plantings. And then we can put some larger trees around the outside. That'll help define the edge of this as well. I think we just have a few more to go. So we can do that, and then we can find a tree or a bush that stays, or a tree that stays really small. I think unfortunately these apple trees are the only things that really would stay somewhat small. But we can still maybe throw a few of these around. And then I think what you would probably see is a nice row of trees along the parking lot road. then maybe we get some larger oak trees at the corners. Actually, maybe we pull these back a little bit, so they're a bit farther in, like so. And then we can get back to adjusting our surface. And now that we can see where our bushes sort of pop in and out, that can help inform us of where our edge should go. I think maybe we pull this down a little bit deeper into these areas. Maybe almost down to this other contour line that we see. So we just keep going with this. We're almost back around. It does seem like we'll be able to connect this to itself, which is a little bit interesting. I do like how this is starting to look. I think the last thing we do is maybe get another, maybe more sparse line of trees. So we can do that. I think I just want to fill in some of this space ourselves with probably just some of these bushes. We'll put them especially at the edges to help blur where our surface is. And then maybe every now and then put it in some of the bare patches that we have. Alright, so I think we'll leave this off just like this. I think maybe we could throw in some rocks to help complete this look, but for now we'll leave it as it is. Maybe we'll let this grow a little bit and see how it ultimately fills in when it's grown. But for now, I'm pretty happy with how this came out. We can take a look. Our elementary school has a good handful of students. Our high school is completely full, so that is good to see. I think maybe we could use this area up here for some more parking. We sort of did angled parking like that before over here at our other high school. So we could maybe do something similar here to help fill in this space, or we could turn this into more campus space. I'm not quite sure what we want to do, but I think that helps round out this area pretty well. So I think this leaves us off at a good point to stop. We didn't really build out as much as I was hoping to, but we did set ourselves up pretty well for the future with our new highway connection, our loose road grid that we're going to follow, and then just sort of adding a few more residents to this area. Our waterfront is slowly coming along. We're gonna have to think about what we want to do along here. Maybe we leave it alone and it just sort of fades off into wilderness that we have out here, or we continue to have it built up a little bit more with perhaps a walking trail. But I think other than that, things are going pretty well. Now we have spent a good amount of time sort of really zoomed in and focused on the details. So next stream we're going to maybe try to tackle some of our larger citywide issues first. We have some traffic issues that occasionally pop up. I think we have a whole bunch of traffic here we need to figure out. We have some traffic sometimes in this area popping up. So I think we need to take a good look at the city as a whole and address some of those issues in the next stream. But I think other than that, this is a good stopping point. So thanks for sticking around if you've stayed on watching the stream. It's really fun playing this with you guys. So continue to join in Wednesdays at 7:30 for more streams, and also be sure to check in on the weekends where we might have some extra time to play through this. But other than that, thank you guys for being here. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.